The moment my wife, Rebecca Whitmore, whispered my name in Dr. Nathaniel Brooks's office, I felt something inside my chest collapse. Not slowly, not gradually, all at once. My name is Daniel Whitmore. For 11 years, I believed my life in Greenwich, Connecticut was built on something solid. A stable marriage, a respected career in finance, and a son named Ethan Whitmore who called me Dad every single day of his life. I coached Ethan's soccer games on Saturday mornings. I helped him build a volcano model for his third-grade science fair. I carried him to bed when he fell asleep on the couch during movie nights. Every memory in my life had Ethan somewhere inside it. Every plan I made for the future included him. But the doctor's office smelled different that afternoon. Too quiet, too still. Dr. Nathaniel Brooks stared at the genetic report on his monitor longer than any doctor should stare at routine test results. Rebecca sat beside me. Her posture was perfect, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Too neat, too controlled. Dr. Brooks cleared his throat. Daniel, there appears to be a discrepancy in the parental markers. I frowned. What kind of discrepancy? He looked directly at me. The results indicate that you're not Ethan's biological father. The words didn't land like a shock. They landed like confusion, like someone speaking a language I didn't recognize. That doesn't make sense, I said quietly. Ethan had my hair color, my narrow chin, even the same small scar above his eyebrow from when he fell into a coffee table as a toddler. Rebecca didn't speak. She only looked down at the carpet. Dr. Brooks continued carefully. It's possible the lab made an error. We can run a confirmation test. Rebecca spoke immediately. Yes. Too quickly. Too prepared. We should do that right away. That was the first moment my stomach tightened. Because people who are shocked don't rush the process. They question it. They argue. They panic. Rebecca Whitmore did none of those things. 3 days later, the second test was done. This time it included samples from both of us. 3 more days passed. 6 days total. 6 days where nothing in my house felt normal anymore. Rebecca started locking her phone when I entered the room. She began volunteering to pick Ethan up from school, even though I usually did that. She avoided eye contact at dinner. Small changes. But when you have lived beside someone for 11 years, small changes feel enormous. The confirmation appointment arrived on a gray Thursday afternoon. Rebecca insisted Ethan stay home with our neighbor, Margot Thornton. We drove to the clinic in silence. Dr. Brooks didn't ask us to wait in the lobby. He walked us straight into his office. That was the moment I knew the result had not changed. He turned the monitor toward me. 2 words were highlighted in red. Paternity excluded. My lungs felt tight, like the room had suddenly lost oxygen. I slowly turned my head toward Rebecca. She didn't look surprised. She looked defeated. Then she whispered something so quietly I almost missed it. Daniel, I never wanted you to find out like this. Those words hit harder than the test results, because they meant one thing. She had known. For 11 years. I stood up slowly. The chair scraped across the floor. You knew. Rebecca finally looked at me. Her eyes were wet but calm. Yes. The room went completely silent. I felt anger rise in my chest. But something else rose with it. Fear. Not fear for myself. Fear for Ethan. Because one question suddenly mattered more than anything else. Who is his father? Rebecca swallowed. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she said something far stranger. It's not that simple. Nothing about that sentence made sense. There is a man, she continued quietly. But it wasn't supposed to happen the way it did. My hands are shaking now. Ow! She closed her eyes for a moment. Before our wedding. The words felt like ice sliding down my spine. 11 years ago. Dr. Brooks shifted uncomfortably in his chair. But neither of us noticed him anymore. The world had shrunk to just 2 people. A husband, and the woman who had hidden the biggest truth of his life. You let me raise him, I said slowly. Rebecca nodded. Tears finally rolled down her face. I thought the truth would destroy everything. I laughed once. A hollow sound. And this doesn't. She shook her head. You don't understand. That sentence made my anger spike. Then explain it. Rebecca looked directly at me. For the first time since we entered the room. There's something about Ethan you still don't know. My heart started pounding harder. What are you talking about? Rebecca hesitated. Then she said something that made the entire situation feel even more complicated than betrayal. His biological father tried to come back. The room froze again. When? I asked. Rebecca whispered the answer. 3 months ago. The words slammed into my chest. 3 months. 3 months ago, someone else had stepped into the shadow of my life. Someone who had a biological claim to the boy who called me dad. Who is he? I demanded. Rebecca looked down again. She whispered a name. But the moment the name left her mouth, I realized something far worse than the lie she had kept. Because I knew exactly who that man was. And that meant he hadn't just reappeared 3 months ago. He had been around much longer than that. Much closer than that. And suddenly one terrifying question filled my mind. How many times had that man seen Ethan without me even realizing who he was? The name Rebecca Whitmore, whispered in Dr. Nathaniel Brooks's office, did not belong to a stranger. It belonged to someone I had shaken hands with. Someone who had stood inside my own home. Someone who had looked my son in the eyes more than once. Reed Calloway, she said quietly. For a moment, my brain refused to process it. Reed Calloway. The same Reed Calloway who had recently joined the investment firm where I worked in Manhattan. The same Reed Calloway who had been at our house for dinner 2 months ago. The same man who had laughed with Ethan in the backyard while throwing a baseball. My chest tightened. You're telling me he's Ethan's father? Rebecca nodded slowly. The room felt smaller, like the walls had moved closer while we were talking. How long have you known he's back? I asked. Rebecca wiped a tear from her cheek. 3 months. The number echoed in my mind again. 3 months. 3 months where I had unknowingly sat across conference table from the man who shared my son's DNA. 3 months where he had been looking at Ethan, watching him, possibly knowing something I didn't. Did he know about Ethan? I asked. Rebecca hesitated. Then she nodded. Yes. A sharp anger cut through me. And you didn't think I deserved to know that? Rebecca's voice broke slightly. I thought if the truth stayed buried, everyone could keep their life. Everyone. The words sounded absurd. Because nothing about this situation involved everyone. It involved one boy and 2 men, one who raised him and one who created him. What does he want? I asked. Rebecca stared at the floor. He wants to meet Ethan. Those words felt heavier than anything else she had said, because suddenly the situation wasn't about the past anymore. It was about the future. The image of Ethan flashed through my mind. 9 years old. Still small enough to hold my hand when crossing a street. Still young enough to believe that the adults around him controlled the world. And suddenly that world was cracking open. Rebecca spoke again. He said he wouldn't force anything legally. Legally. That word mattered. Because in Connecticut, paternity laws can get complicated. But 11 years of legal fatherhood carries weight. I'm on Ethan's birth certificate, I said quietly. Rebecca nodded. Yes. I turned toward Dr. Brooks. He shifted slightly in his chair, but he understood what the silence meant. There was nothing medical left to discuss. Only life. Only consequences. We drove home in silence. The same road. The same neighborhood. The same white house with the trimmed hedges. But nothing looked the same anymore. Ethan was sitting at the kitchen table when we walked in. Margot Thornton had left 20 minutes earlier. He was coloring something with blue markers. He looked up and smiled. Hey, Dad. 2 simple words. But they felt different now. Not weaker. Just heavier. I forced a smile. Hey, buddy. Rebecca walked upstairs without saying anything. I sat across from Ethan at the table. What are you drawing? I asked. A soccer field. He held up the paper proudly. Stick figures everywhere. One of them was taller. That's you, he said. Coach, Dad. Something in my throat tightened. Because children don't measure fatherhood with DNA. They measure it with presence, with rides to school, with bedtime stories, with hands that steady their bicycle the first time they learn to ride. Ethan leaned forward. Did the doctor say what my allergy is? I looked at him, really looked. Every feature, every expression, every small habit I thought he inherited from me. And suddenly one realization became painfully clear. None of that mattered, because fatherhood is not biology. It is responsibility. It is time. It is love repeated every single day until it becomes part of a child's identity. Rebecca came downstairs 30 minutes later. Her eyes were red. We stood in the kitchen while Ethan played upstairs. "What are you going to do?" she asked quietly. I looked at her. Then I asked the only question that mattered. "What does Reed think he's going to be?" Rebecca blinked. "What do you mean? A father?" The word hung in the air. Because being a father isn't a biological event. It's 11 years of showing up. "I don't know what he expects," she admitted. I nodded slowly. "Then he's about to learn something." 3 days later, I asked Reed Calloway to meet me. Not at the office. Not a restaurant. At the park where Ethan played soccer every Saturday morning. Reed arrived wearing a dark coat. He looked nervous. "Daniel," he said carefully. I didn't shake his hand. Instead, I pointed toward the soccer field. Ethan was running across the grass with his teammates. Laughing. Falling. Getting back up. "That's him," I said. Reed watched quietly. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then he said something honest. "He looks happy." "Yes," I replied. Reed shifted uncomfortably. "I don't want to destroy anything." I looked at him. "Then don't." He frowned slightly. "I just thought I should know him." I nodded. "And someday, maybe you will." Reed's eyes narrowed slightly. "But understand something first." He waited. "You may be his biological father." I paused. "But I'm a man who stayed." The wind moved through the field. Children's laughter echoed across the grass. Reed looked back toward Ethan. Then he nodded slowly. "Because some truths are impossible to argue with." And that was the day I understood something important. My world had collapsed in 3 minutes. But the life I built with Ethan was never built on biology. It was built on every moment I chose to be there. And that is something no DNA test can erase.